address this distinguished gathering. Dear esteemed colleagues, dear students, very dear students, it's a pleasure to be in Mumbai, and it's a pleasure to be in India. Thank you very much. I would like as well to seize the opportunity to thank Professor Ban for inviting me here. She's been so instrumental in fostering relationship between our universities, which I deeply appreciate. I'm so grateful as well for the colleagues from SNDT for their remarkable organization of the conference to make it a resounding success, and it is a resounding success. Many thanks to the student ambassadors who have been so graciously supported us throughout this event, and special mention to Netra, who's been so supportive and making this experience so enriching. Very grateful. So going back to the topic of today, I would like to start with a simple but very deep question. Is education a barrier, or as we have on the top, or the bridge for is language or multilingualism a bridge or a barrier to education? So while moving forward, I would like you, if possible, to think about experiences you have with your students or your own experiences. Think about instances where language has opened doors for opportunity or created barriers, created challenges for inclusion and for success. If you would like, if you don't mind, if you could just jot down a few thoughts or examples, and as we move forward, I would very much like to hear how this resonates in your own context, and if you could see if there are any parallels or differences as we move forward. Today's focus is Morocco's diverse education landscape through the story of Tafna. So I would like today to invite you to go on a journey together to explore the multilingual landscape of Moroccan education through the eyes of a young Amazigh girl, a 9 years old Amazigh girl. And to do that, I would like first to start to give you a bit of context of the Moroccan educational landscape. To understand fully the story of Tafna, I would like to share with you some context of Moroccan education, or Moroccan context in general. So, Morocco is a mosaic of historical influences. So we have the indigenous Amazigh. These are the original inhabitants of Morocco, and until today their cultural practices, their language are foundational part of Moroccan culture. We have as well the Arab influence. The conquest, the Arab Muslim conquest of Morocco brought Arabic language and Islam to Morocco, which are essential to or central to today's Moroccan cultural identity. And the Jewish heritage, Morocco has a long history of the Jewish presence in they contributed to the Moroccan culture, art and music. And we have as well the Andalusian influence until today. After the expansion of Muslims and Jews after the Reconquista, the Andalusians brought Andalusians cultural elements, including architecture, art, and cuisine to Morocco. Yeah. And as well, the French and Spanish colonial era has complicated, has made the Moroccan linguistic landscape even more complicated. So the French until today it has a very an everlasting effect. So French is still the language of elite communication. Its fluency in French is required to succeed and access major private and educational private organization, and even research in elite research in research disciplines. But on a more modern note, English is rapidly growing in prominence in Morocco. We see more and more English in business, in entertainment, and in the education system. So, as you can see from the image there, Morocco is so rich in its so rich in its culture. You would think that as if we live in a museum, but don't worry, we have Wi-Fi. We still have Wi-Fi. Morocco has a long-standing reputation for cultural tolerance. We welcome influences while we maintain our unique identity. So Morocco is so multilingual, and I know several colleagues from here have been frequent visitors to Morocco, and they would agree with me that Morocco is so multilingual that if you ask for directions in Morocco, you get an answer in French, and gesture in Arabic, and smile in Amazigh. And not to worry, Betsy, they might throw in some English to make it fair. But on a serious note, Morocco has a deep historical commitment to education. I don't know if you are aware that Al-Qarawiyyin University in Fez is the world's oldest university operating until today. And if you need a reference for this, please read Dr. Sean Bracken's book. And it's right there in the introduction, so don't worry, you don't have to read the whole book. Sorry, Sean. but if you are interested in UDM, please, yeah, I do recommend you read the whole book. Yeah. It was founded in 859 AD by a woman, a visionary ahead of her time, Fatima al-Fihri. Morocco has as well ratified several UN relevant conventions, including the UNESCO Convention against, sorry, there is a typo there, against discrimination in education and not dissemination. We have not reached that stage of annihilation yet. We are still, sorry about that. Morocco has passed several national laws, including most recently Law 0100 in 2000, and the framework law 5117 in 2019, and just most recently in 2023 the Pact ICE3 reform, all emphasizing the need for inclusive education and making, like the most recent one, making inclusive education one or the foundational basis of our education system. And as you can see, Morocco has invested more in education. 16.9%, nearly 17% of all government spending goes towards education. So compared with the world average spending, which is just 14.8, and OECD countries, which is just 12.4%. So in terms of investment and policy, there have been significant advancements in that respect. However, barriers remain systemic, persistent, and multifaceted in the Moroccan education system. And to mention just some, there are logistical or physical barriers. So students or from rural areas have face very systemic or logistical barriers. So education in the Atlas Mountains begins with literally an uphill climb of 30 kilometers walking distance to schools. So that's 30 kilometers they have to walk to reach their schools in the Atlas Mountains. Added to that, there are the socio-economic challenges, limited parental education, which make parents feel a disconnect, although they are deeply invested in the schooling and the success of their children. They feel that disconnect and they cannot help their children academically. And there is the poverty as well prevails, and there is the challenge between prioritizing the economic survival over long-term education. These logistical and socio-economic or societal challenges further deepen the gender disparities, especially in terms of the girl rural primary education, as we shall see shortly. So generally in the rural primary enrollment is 69%, compared with urban enrollment, which is nearly 100%. Rural children with disability enrollment or access to schools is 32%, and it drops for rural girls transitioning to high schools to 20 or less than 30%. National assessments of core subjects, including math, science, reading, and writing, show that rural proficiency in these areas is less than 1/3. Basic proficiency is less than 1/3 in rural areas. Going back to Tafda's story, it's her story is a collision of challenges, of barriers, of systemic obstacles. Tafna is a 7 years girl, and by the way, Tafna is an Amazigh name that means source of water or spring. From an Amazigh village in the Atlas Mountains. Her story, which is an authentic story based on real experiences of Moroccan students, especially from the Atlas Mountains. Everything changes once Tafna's family relocates to Casablanca, a busy, urban, bustling city, as she faces new and familiar customs and fast-paced culture of every large city. So those obstacles that Tafna has faced, they are multi-layered, multifaceted. One of them is on a personal level, a personal struggle. So this personal struggle is related first to her identity, which was originally shaped by the rhythm of her rural life and her native tongue. Is suddenly in conflict with the new reality of a busy city with completely different customs, with different societal expectations, with different surrounding. Her morning classroom, imagine her morning classroom is dominated by modern standard Arabic, which is a foreign language to Tafna. And even when her teacher switches to Moroccan Arabic, by the way, if you are not familiar with the linguistic landscape of Morocco, Morocco is a diglossic country, so we use officially we use standard Arabic for writing and for media, but for everyday communication we use Moroccan Arabic. It's vernacular, what we refer to as well as Darija. So even when the teacher switches to Moroccan Arabic, still Tafna feels alienated. She is dealing with another alien language, and it deepens her sense of alienation and isolation. So language is no longer for her a means of connection, but a barrier, eroding her confidence and making her feeling even further isolated. On the interpersonal layer, and here we are talking about teacher-student dynamics, her teacher, unfamiliar with her linguistic background, further exacerbates her struggles. Her peers, naturally, as you know, based on their shared common knowledge, common language, and shared previous experiences, naturally exclude her. They form cliques that naturally exclude Tafna. At the institutional level, this is illustrated as later in the day. In the morning, she was taught in Moroccan and Standard Arabic, and later in the day, the teacher switches to teaching maths and science lessons in French. French, which she has never encountered before. It's unlike her peers. French is a barrier and a language of opportunity that excludes her. And we move on to a community layer. Her parents, being unfamiliar with the languages of instruction, feel a disconnect and are unable to support her academically. And this cultural divide between home and school becomes yet another obstacle. And here home is as well in itself intersection, because the older home that Tafna was used to is that home where she's used to speak in Amazigh, she's used to Amazigh cultural values, to close-knit social structure, and now it's a new home, completely different. And in terms of the policy layer, national policies which aim to foster educational opportunities fall short in addressing these practical realities, and rather become contribute as systemic barriers to the education of Tafna. We can synthesize these layers as you can see into 5, and they include those personal challenges or individual challenges, what I would call individual layer. Interpersonal barriers, and include those interpersonal communication between the teacher and the student, between the student, with peer students as well. And the institutional gap, which involve curricula and school policies, and the community disconnect between the school and the parents, and the policy not being able to account for marginalized communities such as Tafnas. So these layers are no disconnected silos. They are interconnected and dynamic. Interconnected in the sense that change in one can ensure change in the other, so can ripple the other, or ensure or even amplifies the effectiveness of the other layer. And the example is Finland's success in education, in investing in teachers, has effects on the teacher personalized, supportive environments, providing a personalized and supportive environment for students. And this is the interconnectedness between layers. And these layers are as well dynamic. They can change and they can evolve due to cultural dynamics, due to policy change, due to digital or technological advancements. So an example is like to enhance relationship between teachers and students and peers might involve different strategies depending on whether the school is under or well funded. If the school is under resourced, then maybe empathy-driven strategies could be encouraged, and if it is well founded, maybe like professional development courses could be adopted. Just to give you how these layers are interdependent. So they are in a holistic manner. They are working together rather than being isolated silos, as I mentioned before. The question now is where we move from here. So, which brings us to a critical shift in mindset. Instead of waiting for change, we should act for change. So, how we put these interconnected principles into actionable steps. So, with this in mind, I would like to leave you with these questions. So, rather than, what can we do? What can we do today with what we have? How can we creatively leverage the resources, knowledge, and human capital already available? How can we act in a way that builds trust and hope within the system and advocating for broader reforms? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Mustapha Aabi, for a cool water splashed on our faces. For those of us who are living in a sense of calm, it shows us the reality. Thank you very much. Now it's open for questions. 2 quick hands up get their first chances. So 2 hands.
First hand first.
First. Yes.
How many languages do the children learn? I mean, you already spoke of 4 to 5 of them when the child is coming from a village and knew just 1. The school is already teaching in 3, 4 of them. So how many languages is a child supposed to know?
Well, there is officially they learn Standard Arabic, French, English, and Amazigh. And unofficially, teachers usually switch to Moroccan Arabic to explain concepts when they are complex. So all in total are 5 languages. But the languages of instruction, if you are talking about that, because there is a difference between teaching a language as a foreign language and as a language of instruction. Languages of instruction are Standard Arabic and French, but we use Moroccan Arabic unofficially as well. So 3 languages.
Can I? Yeah. Sorry. So, in the village when Tafna was there, did her parents know this Moroccan Arabic?
No, they speak just Amazigh, and Amazigh is completely different language. And schooling usually starts in Morocco. Primary schooling starts at 7 or 6, between 6 and 7. In rural areas, most rural areas do not have as well early years education, and that's something again that's one of the systemic structural obstacles that rural areas face. So it was like an abrupt, disruptive move to Casablanca.
Yes. The young student in blue, please. And then I'll come to you.
So one of my noticings is that your situation in Morocco has a similarity to our situation in India, because we are multilingual. We have a society which has the barrier of language, of colonized language, of religion, of caste, etc. So when our students reach middle school, it's very common for them to move from a vernacular to a demand for English, because that's our most valued colonized language, the colonial language. What I'm wondering is, what has Morocco been able to do for teachers to be able to train students from a young age to be able to adapt to these different language demands? Because you're talking about like 4 different languages even within Morocco, and let's say one of your students comes out of Morocco, then you're also faced with English. So we are like talking about multiple languages. So what is the teacher training that happens that equips a teacher for this?
Thank you for that interesting question. But yes, you are right. We are a micro example of India, England being a large country, so we are a micro example of India. Yes, in terms of experience. In terms of teaching, teacher training, for the moment, what we have in Morocco, we have what we call bilingual teacher training, where we have 2 types of teachers. We have bilingually oriented teacher, and we have monolingually oriented teachers. So, because core subjects are taught in both languages. So monolingual teachers, they teach just Arabic subject because most like art and humanities subjects are taught in Arabic. So they teach those subjects and sometimes maths in Arabic or sciences in Arabic. Bilingual teachers, they do both. They are supposed to do that either in Arabic or in French. That's what we have so far here. In terms of inclusive practices, unfortunately that component is not embedded in a very structured way in teacher training. We have those professional development courses every now and then, but there is no follow-up assessing what's the impact of those courses and mentoring those teachers that undergone those courses. So there is a long way to go, and but we are going like slow but sure steps there to reach that. Thank you.
There was one hand up there, right at the end. I think, do you want to ask a question there? No. So, yes, the last question, please.
Can we arrange for a mic, please?
I was relating what you shared to the situation in municipal schools in Mumbai, where we have Hindi and Marathi as compulsory subjects which have to be taken along with English. And many learners, especially those coming from marginalized backgrounds, do struggle, and especially non-Marathi speaking backgrounds, do really struggle with Marathi, even with Hindi for that matter, to really achieve success. And often what is seen is that probably success in English looks different than success in Hindi and Marathi in those classrooms. And further it impacts them because later on for their boards they need to have a good score in all those subjects to get a good 10 board score. What I have noticed is there is a very distinct difference in pedagogy in how Hindi and Marathi are taught versus how English is taught. I was just wondering if that's something similar in your case that you see that happens.
Yeah, we say generally that language cannot be detached from its culture. And when we talk about culture, it comes as well with it's the pedagogy that is prevalent in that country. Like if we say French, what are the pedagogies that are prevailing in France? And if we are talking about English, what are the pedagogies that are prevailing in the UK or in the States? So there is that divide in terms of pedagogy. You can feel that Arabic is taught in, for example, in more archaic, more traditional way, while French and English, you can like you see that the teacher use like innovative, creative pedagogies like play and so on, which you don't find much in Arabic. Yeah, absolutely. Just about the case you mentioned in Mumbai, it's similar indeed to Morocco. We have even a more complicated situation. Like Amazigh now, well, we used to have French and Arabic are the official languages, but the new constitution now, Arabic and Amazigh are the official languages, and Amazigh is compulsory to be taught in schools now. But the majority of teachers and of students do not speak Amazigh. And there is always that gap between policy ambitions and implementation. And that's something it's one of everyday struggles in Morocco. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My special need is just to be a little taller to be able to reach you all. I think the questions summarize the session very well when they said that what you said relates to all of us here. And that clearly shows that all we are aiming at is good education. And to provide good education is not something that we can do overnight. We need many lifetimes, each one of us sitting here, to be able to address Tafna's need. And Tafna exists everywhere. She is in Mumbai, she is in Delhi, she is in US, in the UK, she is in the Southeast Asian region, everywhere. Wherever we go, we have Tafna, who is taken from one place, planted in another place, because the pot has to boil at night. The parents have to earn a living sometimes, and therefore they need to move from one area to another. There is a good education, so-called, available in the urban, and so you uproot Tafna from one place and place her somewhere else. But what happens to Tafna is something that I think this presentation beautifully illustrated for all of us. And to chew these ideas will be really something that we need big mugs of coffee to help us do that. Thank you very much for this honor to chair this conference.